Within the world of Sakamoto Days, there's an organization referred to as the Japanese Association of Assassins. This organization is essentially an underground world within itself, where there's a thriving hitman business unbeknownst to most people in the world, and within the JAA, there's a group of assassins that are referred to as the Order. This group contains only the strongest assassins that are tasked with maintaining order within the assassin world, only to be shown when you guessed it, things get out of order. Their power and existence so elusive and respected that the group is considered to be an urban legend. Each member of the group stands head and shoulders above all other assassins in every way possible, with it being stated that only one can destroy an entire branch of the JAA. In this video, I'll be going over all of the Order members and ranking them in strength. With that said, if you enjoy content such as this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and now, let's get into it. To begin this list, we have the man who is referred to as the End, Kamihate. This guy will more than likely be the most antisocial character you've ever seen in any show, ever. First, Kamihate wears a cloak that covers his entire body so nobody can see his face or any features of his body. Second, he has other members of the Order carry charts with letters on them so he can shoot the letters from a distance to spell out whatever he's trying to communicate to them instead of being around them and speaking. And the list goes on of little stupid stuff like this. He's even developed an ability to read lips through his sniper lens to understand what people are saying from a distance. Kamihate is like this not only because of anxiety, but he's someone who believes that strength comes from solitude, contrary to the message of the series, so he decides to do anything possible to prevent himself from connecting with others and caring for them, although Heisuke eventually gets to him after their battle. As you can probably tell, Kamihate is primarily a sniper and has enough skill to even be referred to as the greatest sniper in history. He's earned this title not only because of his amazing accuracy, but because of his ability to control an entire arena with a single bullet. Kamihate can shoot in a way that uses his environment to his advantage by doing things like using the bullets to ricochet his shots, making his bullets hit certain things in the arena that would cause objects within to launch into his targets, things of that nature. Kamihate isn't helpless at close range either, as when we saw Heisuke manage to overcome him in their battle, he was able to easily blitz Heisuke at the very end and put him back in his place. Kamihate has a glaring weakness, and it's likely the worst of them all. He gets agitated very easy, and he's quite prideful. It's self-destructive to a point where it rivals Vegeta from the Cell Saga, and is usually why he gets shown up a lot despite how powerful he is. Although I put Kamihate at the bottom of the list, don't forget that Sakamoto Days is very matchup based, and really, these power ranking lists change almost every month. After Kamihate, we have Hio. Hio, like Kamihate, is one of those types that can get angry quite easily, but that's usually what he displays at the surface level and is quite caring, calm, and composed when it's time to get serious. Hio's a brute who's very loyal to the Japanese Association of Assassins and the Order as a whole, following every rule to a T. He wouldn't even give Sakamoto information about the JAA, even though Sakamoto was a former colleague and member of the Order. What sets Hio apart from his fellow members is how strong his heart is. Even when being told by Yumura that he had the least amount of talent to become an Order member, he would not be discouraged and still move forward. Even when battling, he prioritizes the safety of the innocent before anything else. Hio typically fights with brute force and brass knuckles. He easily has some of the highest raw physical strength in the series, being able to send people flying with punches, and he can pretty much destroy anything thrown at him, rendering most attacks in the series null and void. He can also eat many attacks and brush them off. You can make a case for him having the highest durability in the series except for Kashima, who's literally immortal. Hio's greatest weakness was previously mentioned. It's the fact that he is way too kind to be an assassin, and his kindness can easily make him compromise an entire battle, as he was going to defeat Kumanomi with mid difficulty, but would try to protect a civilian and lose his eyesight while doing so, and things only got worse from there. Osaragi is the only female within the Order, and in contrast to Hio, she is one of the greatest prodigies that the assassin world has ever seen, as she was just an ordinary farm girl her entire life before being brought straight into the Order. She's also quite apathetic yet scattered-brained for most of her appearances, as she'd be in the middle of a fight and just start thinking about what she's gonna eat for dinner. She's also very impulsive to a point where it can be detrimental to her and those around her, as we would see in the art exhibition arc. Osaragi uses a buzzsaw as her primary weapon. This can be used in close range combat and even mid range if she decides to use the cord to extend the range of the saw and even swing it around. Osaragi is quite good at closing the distance between her and others, as she's been shown to grab her opponents with the cord of the saw and just pull them toward her. Not only this, but Osaragi boasts tons of strength and speed despite her frame. She's obviously the least experienced combatant on the list, so she's placed down here, but her flaws doesn't seem to be as detrimental to combat within the assassin world as the previous two characters on the list. After Osaragi, we have Kageuri. This is one of the more interesting characters on the list and probably the entire series. He is also the character that I am least certain of when it comes to placing on the list. He's quite loud and flamboyant and obsessed with filmmaking and will do anything possible to capture footage of anything interesting going on. This has resulted in Kageuri having TikTok levels of an attention span, and he cannot really focus on anything without redirecting his attention to capturing the next big moment on film. It's come to a point where he basically thinks that any second he's not filmmaking, his life is not worth living. He was also once a member of the Order, but decided to leave them and join Uzuki's group in order to film all of the battles and terror that will come from Uzuki in the JAA's conflict. He's more of a neutral party than anything, but is still an enemy of the Order due to betraying them. Kageuri is someone who claims to not be an assassin and doesn't have any skill at combat, but all of his skills are within his ability to create a film. With that said, Kageuri's stats seem to vary widely depending on how bad he wants to create the film that he's trying to create. And even after fighting Sakamoto for multiple chapters, he was basically able to brush off all of his damage for the sake of the film, revealing that the blood all over him had been makeup the entire time. His weapons also consist of tools that people use to create films, such as a clapperboard and a camera that can launch energy beams. I say I'm most uncertain of his placement because he seems to screw around a lot and his strength is dependent on his morale. Despite that, Kageuri is a fan favorite and Suzuki knows this, hence is why we never see him in the story. Yumura is a character with a lot of connections to many others in the story, meanwhile having almost no presence, which makes him infinitely interesting to me. Yumura was the original number 2 of the Order and a founding member of the organization, but he'd be eventually banished from the JAA and branded as a traitor by Sei Asaki, the primary antagonist of the series. He's also the father of Amane who wants to take revenge on him due to eliminating his mother, but she was a double agent planning to take both of their lives, and Amane doesn't seem to be aware of that part of the story. At this point, Yumura has been working directly for Nagumo in the shadows of the assassin world, as everybody believes that he's dead, even Sakamoto, despite him being a part of the crew, and we have not seen him in a long time. Yumura is insanely skilled in combat as he was able to hold off Shishiba, Nagumo, and Osaragi all at once, although he'd have to retreat for obvious reasons. He primarily sports a 3-section bow staff with a sharp blade at the tip, basically how the playful Cloud from Jujutsu Kaisen would end up, and he's able to use it to either slash his opponents from a distance or engage in close combat. We don't really know anything of his strength at his prime, but we can just assume it's higher than it is now, so I'm just placing the Yumura we have here right below Shishiba, who he lost against. Now we come to Shishiba, and this guy was the student of Yumura who was basically taken in by him to become a member of the Order. Shishiba is a man who loves simplicity more than anything else. He doesn't really give things too much attention if they don't need it. He doesn't like when assassinations are done in public because it's messy and troublesome, and he's one of those people who just generally handle any problem that comes his way without a second thought. He's simple-minded when it comes to taking action, but as we see the story progress, we see that he really starts to put more thought into the people and things around him. I personally think him leaving the Order isn't out of the question. He's also Osaragi's mentor and they care for each other quite a bit. Shishiba is someone who fights with just 2 hammers and 2 hammers alone, as they're easy to use, can cut, gouge, and do not need to be reloaded, and hit pretty hard. As we can see, he manages to make this work against all sorts of ridiculous enemies, battlefields, and circumstances, so he's quite flexible as a combatant. Shishiba also has just a ton of feats that place him quite high on this list. He was able to defeat an older Yumura without much damage taken, and he was able to hold off 2 Aokamaru orphans for a good amount of time. He just always seems to be that guy you could bet on for any fight. Kaka is another founding member of the Order, but we'd meet him in a flashback arc rather than the actual present day. Kaka was actually pretty chill with the role of handling troublesome assassin students. If they were strong enough, instead of getting rid of them, he'd invite them to join the Order. We'd meet him when he'd be doing just this to Sakamoto, Nagumo, and Rion all at the same time. Even after their fight, he doesn't even care that they roughed him up pretty bad. He's a pretty good and funny guy besides the assassinations and stuff, and currently in the story, he's kind of just chilling out with Nagumo on the sidelines while everybody gets power-ups after rejecting Sakamoto as a student and sending Shin and Heisuke off to prison. Kindaka's main style of fighting is completely perception blitzing his opponents with light speed shoes that allow him to move at insane speeds. We see that even against Sakamoto, Nagumo, and Rion, who were all pretty young at the time, but still lower order level according to Kindaka as he would invite them to the order. He was able to completely perception blitz all of them throughout the entire fight many times over and just ragdoll them. It was completely one-sided. The only reason why he would manage to lose to the students was because he just kept getting distracted during the fight. The reason why this feat is so important is because there's only one character in the series who's been able to replicate a feat like destroying a bunch of order level characters all at once, and this was Takamura, who's said to be the boogeyman of all assassins. Kindaka also carries a blade that he never uses, and implies that he isn't going all out in every fight that he's in, so he's more than likely capable of having more strength than shown. Most people will not like me not having this guy at 2, but I honestly think he needs to show a bit more, and eventually he will. Taurus is a new member of the Order, but he's an assassin with over 50 years of experience, so he's not a newbie. He's a man obsessed with money to a point where it drives pretty much every action he takes in the story, and he won't even fulfill his duty if it doesn't pay him enough, as shown with this dynamic with Sakamoto. As although Sakamoto is a top priority target for the Order, Taurus will not eliminate him until his bounty is high enough to pay off his debts. Taurus also gambles in every possible way he can whenever he's not fighting someone in the story, and will not harm anybody that doesn't get him paid. In my opinion, Taurus is currently one of the best characters in a series full of colorful and enjoyable characters, and pretty much any time he's on screen, he steals the show. Funnily enough, when he was introduced, everybody thought he was going to be some one-note jobber. Taurus primarily fights with sand blasters on each of his hands. These blasters have enough force to completely destroy vehicles and send whoever's hit by them flying. Taurus has done nothing but basically impress and flex on the cast of Sakamoto Days since he's joined the Order. He's defeated Sakamoto 5 times in a row without a single scratch, dominating him to a point where Sakamoto just asked him straight up, "How can I defeat you?" And he was able to counter and destroy Shishiba's hammer without him even realizing what had happened. Lastly, he also has 50 years of battle experience and displays it by being the person to apparently mentor Sakamoto, although he isn't doing it to help him. Taurus, in my opinion, is easily one of the most powerful characters in the series, and that's not up for debate. Sakamoto Taro is the protagonist of the story, and the man once known as the greatest assassin in history, but after meeting his current wife, he would retire and swear off working in the assassination business as a whole, as his wife despised him killing others, and he started to grasp the weight of what he was actually doing by taking people's lives. He would be brought back into the assassin world through a bounty being placed on him, and all sorts of other events taking place after that. This leading up to him being a primary target for all assassins over the world. Due to this, his goal is to take over the Japanese Association of Assassins and reform it into a chain grocery store by the end of the story. As of now, he seems to have completed his training with Taurus and finally caught back up to the big boys of the series. Sakamoto's main shtick is fighting barehanded and relying on his environment to provide him with all sorts of tools and weapons he can use to succeed. If he's at an office, he'll use a stapler and a pen. If he's at a park, he'll use sticks and acorns. You get the point. Sakamoto seemed to be weak compared to Taurus as he couldn't do much against him when they fight, but as of the most recent chapters, he's been able to send him flying and cause him to bleed with just one kick, meanwhile seeming confident in his ability to return and defeat Taurus there. Taurus also pointed out that same arc that Sakamoto had some ability that he wasn't aware of and asked him why he was hiding it, much to Sakamoto's confusion, but I'm sure we can assume that he's figured it out as of now. Even without this, Sakamoto is the only character in the series to go back and forth with Takamura solo and survive. There's also the fact that Sakamoto gets a massive increase in strength when he's fighting to kill, which we rarely see him do, but it's important enough to consider. Yoichi Nagumo lands himself at the spot of the second strongest member of the Order. Nagumo serves as Sakamoto's best friend in the series, and although he seemed to be quite mysterious and somebody with all sorts of different plans and hidden intentions in the beginning phases of the story, we eventually come to find out that Nagumo moves the way he does for the sake of his friends, and thankfully he does join Team Sakamoto as of recent chapters. Nagumo is a jester-like character who screws around with the cast a lot and gets off at pissing everybody off, but they all love him regardless, and he loves them too, although he never admit it. Nagumo also sports the most potent and powerful fighting style in the series, in my opinion. He possesses a multi-tool weapon with about 6 different forms, designed to keep his opponent on their toes and unable to predict what he'll do next. This tool can go from a sword to a scythe, all the way to an axe. Nagumo seems to run through all forms of the tool, then use a transparent blade to deal a fatal blow to his targets, as they would have no idea that it would ever be coming. He can also steal anybody's appearance with ease, and he's the 4th best shooter in assassin history. Nagumo's entire moveset revolves around deception, as he believes the ability to deceive your opponents is the greatest strength that a combatant can have, which fits his spy background. Not only this, but Nagumo was able to defeat Gaku and apparently hit Taurus hard enough to make him real. Also, he was stated to be one of the 2 strongest members of the order by Uzuki himself. Although nobody would truly know this 100%, Uzuki is more than likely one of the characters who would. He's also always been a pair to Sakamoto and would continue to train and keep himself in shape during all those years that Sakamoto retired. So as you know, there are a few characters on this list that were not mentioned, and this is due to a lack of feats and not enough screen time. This is what the honorable mention is going to be for. So I'll briefly cover those characters before you get into the final spot. First honorable mention will be Tanabata. Tanabata is a musician who acts similar to Kageuri without the insane amounts of delusion. However, he'll still attack people for not understanding his form of art, which is his music. Outside of that, he actually seems pretty chill. Tanabata uses a guitar and the sound waves generated from it for battle. He can even do things such as manipulate the environment by using the sound waves, as he would when causing the manhole to explode, or he can throw plugs into his opponent's body and immobilize them by sending shockwaves through said plug. He's obviously quite powerful, as he was able to hold a pre-Taurus Sakamoto in place with his abilities, but we still don't know enough about him. Also, all of this happened while like 5 other order members were present. The second honorable mention is going to be Oki, who is the leader of the order. Oki is a stickler and a very accountable person, as he chastised Shishiba for arriving to a meeting 14 seconds late, and then he was willing to die to make up for his own incompetence in allowing 4 members of the order to die while he was gone. He's basically Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen if he was an antagonist, and just a bit crazier. As for combat potential, he's the character we know the least of, as we have not seen him do a single thing since he appeared in the series. All we know is that he holds the leadership position in the order, and that he believes he could kill Shishiba in under a minute if he pleased. Last on the honorable mention is going to be Prime Sakamoto. This version of Sakamoto is just impossible to place as the series continues, due to a multitude of factors and how ambiguous Suzuki keeps the relative power scale amongst all characters in the series. Despite this, people tend to consider him top 1 or 2 due to his previously held title of the greatest assassin in history. Now, last on the list, we have Takamura, the embodiment of bloodlust. Takamura is a weak-looking old man who sports his sword as a cane, but that is none other than an appearance. Described as a killer with no breaks, Takamura is a man who is either cutting down anything in his way or just sitting down and doing nothing. Nothing in between that. He also seems to despise those who oppose the JAA or will help out others who happen to be helping the organization out. Even then, not much is known about him. Takamura primarily uses a katana with Yai Jutsu as his form, concentrating insanely powerful slashes by quickly drawing his blade. Something about Takamura is that there's almost nothing that can stop him from launching these slashes, as shown with his battle against Sakamoto. Kick Takamura's blade back in so he can't pull the sword out of the sheath, and he'll pull the sheath off of the sword. Dull his blade so it can no longer cut. Oh well, he'll just use the bullets you shoot at him to sharpen his blade once more. Restrain one of his arms so he can't attack, and he'll cut off his arm with such precision, speed, and cleanliness that he'll be able to reattach it, as the tissues and cells wouldn't even recognize that they've been cut. Takamura is by all means unbeatable. He was able to defeat 5 top tiers, including Nagumo, all at once without breaking a single sweat. It would only be defeated by a surprise attack from Uzuki, who had just copied his personality and abilities. As Nagumo says, the only person that can beat Takamura is Takamura himself, and he's easily the strongest character in the series as of now. With that said, that about covers all members of the Order and where I believe they stand in the power rankings of the series. If you enjoy content such as this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to let me know that you want more of this, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.